Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. You know, one of the things we have in studio, which we haven't mentioned, is we have a very large audience. Audience, obviously,
Huge.
Throughout the Houston area.
Global.
We've mentioned that we have audience members that love to talk to us all the time out of Dallas and other areas. But, you know, we also have a very international audience.
Global audience.
We have a global audience. And actually, today in studio, we figured, you know what? Let's bring in one of those audience members that we have.
Our global audience is here in the studio
Our
today.
global audience
we
is
brought
here.
them all in.
Absolutely brought them here. You know, where are you from?
Hello, I'm Alain Nicolas. I'm from Mexico, but my father is French, so I'm a bit mix-up.
He's a mix-up of French. And, you know, and where were you listening to us when you were listening to us last time?
In a tram in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands. Can you believe it? We had somebody all the way in the Netherlands
As soon as we
listening to
found
us.
out we had a guest in the Netherlands, we had to fly him in.
We flew him in and we said, you know, here you are. Well, thanks a lot for listening to us all the time, by the way.
You're the one that's been downloading.
And, you know, it's interesting because he reminds me, he happens to be also my nephew. And so one of the things that was
has
funny,
nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it, right? He said it really caught on. He said in the discos at nighttime over there, our three pitchers are up there and they're dancing to us, having a good time, redoing all of our shows.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff, wasn't it? Yeah.
True. You're very admired over there.
Everyone, we are huge in the Netherlands.
We're huge over there. You would
Our
not
best
believe
of
it.
CD has sold like 47 copies.
Yes,
there.
yes. We're almost going to become platinum.
Massive.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of fun, though, and we do appreciate you listening to us over there. And it's fun for you to be able to be here actually and see us live.
Yeah, very fun, very interesting. I'm learning a lot, and I think everyone will have a house in the future, so it's very useful. I'm happy to hear you guys.
Well, thank you very much.
thanks for being
You know, the curious part was we were talking about, you know, we're talking about everything going over here, but it's really a lot different over in some of the European countries that you were at. You know, one of the things that we take advantage of here is actually buying a home and owning a home.
Yes.
In Europe, it's not necessarily the case, right?
No, the case is, well, it's different depending on the country, but mainly the state is the owner of the land, and you can sublend, let's say, by a trust, a property, but you are not the owner of the land. So you don't acquire directly the rights of it.
Wow. Well, you know, and so, you know, it's one of those things we talk about, man, are we fortunate to be here? Are we fortunate to be in a strong market in Houston? But also just the little privileges that we do get in financing or owning our own property here. You truly end up
that
having
is
it.
part of the American dream still. I think it's still
Yep.
true today as it was 200 years ago, is that, you know, owning your home, owning the land underneath your home, and being able to enjoy your life with your family.
That is correct.
That is the American
We have
dream.
the freedom to do so.
That is correct. That is correct.
So I'm going to come back to what we were talking about, Chris. And you know, I've seen rates edge up a little bit, and if the Fed stops buying mortgage-backed securities, what do you think we might see? Because that's the goal.
Well, you know, if you look at 2014, and we're talking about, obviously, on the radio show, we're looking at goals for 2014. So, you know, one of the things is that I would tell everybody is if your goal in 2014 has been, well, let me wait and see. The wait-and-see approach is not a good approach in real estate, right? And
Not
because
in this market, no.
not in this market, right? For two reasons. One, we talked about because multiple offers, home prices, valuations, etc. But from a financing perspective, here's a couple things that you have to know that's going on. Number one is rates have nowhere to go but up. Now, obviously, the Fed announced that they're going to stop some of their mortgage-backed security buying. They tailored it back by about $10 billion, and so you know of their
Government
normal,
dollars, that's nothing.
but that's nothing, right? The problem is what generally happens, though, is that the traders are who truly make the bond market move up and down. You know, the government does a little bit of it. The government's been trying to keep rates at a very low rate. But let's face it, one thing, we cannot get to a truly stronger market and have lending redevelop outside of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and FHA and VA without rates rising. And so one of the things the government eventually wants to do is have rates move up so that a private market can start being created and that new products can be introduced in the market. Because remember, the ultimate goal is to phase out Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae or reprivatize them or get them out of the government subsidies in which they're in right now. So the rates are going to go up. And I tell everybody, they're still extremely good, though. So you know, I get this all the time. Individuals over the past month come to me and said, oh, my gosh, you got to be kidding me. The average rate today is 4.625. What happened when a month ago when it was 4.375 on a 30? And I tell everybody, do you realize that the relative difference in your payments may be $30? So relatively speaking, it's a very small change in regards to a monthly payment, right? It might look better in an interest rate wise perspective, but let me tell you,
I think it's bragging rights.
Yeah, I think it's more bragging rights than anything. But at the end of the day, though, if you are out there and you're looking at refinancing your property or buying a new home, know two things. Number one, it's not going to get easier. Okay, the market has introduced what they call qualified mortgage, the QM rules, which are going into effect, has a new 3% rule in effect, has a new debt-to-income ratio in effect, has a new ability to repay factor to it. So there's 3 factors going into it. And the other thing that's going in is that rates are going to continue to move up. There's no way to stop that.
Well, talk about that QM and talk a little bit about that. It's the back ratio.
That is correct.
Total debt to income.
Total debt to income
I
ratio.
believe it's 43% under the new rules.
So what a qualified mortgage, all lenders want to initiate a qualified mortgage because of the Safe Harbor Act, okay? So what a Safe Harbor does is it protects lenders such as ourselves against the borrower coming back upon us, right? For, from a legal reason, layman's terms right there. So what's happening is qualified mortgage rules mean that you have to maintain a 43% total debt to income ratio or less. Now, what's going to happen, because there's no variance in that. I mean, you can't go 43.01. You've got to stay at 42.99999 in order to get qualified, basically, is that most lenders are probably going to start off lower at the beginning of the year. So they're not going to qualify you on 43%. They're going to qualify you on 41. So now let me tell you, it's a smart lending practice. But here's what's happened. A lot of clients right now are getting loans at 45 and at 48 on FHA or 50% on FHA.
Especially right now, having just went through Christmas.
That is correct. So a lot of them are getting a lot of those
things. It's a lot
things.
higher.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so what's happening right now is that people are going to have to be a lot more conscious of what their debt-to-income ratio is to be able to make sure it gets down to that 40 to 41%, so the lender feels very comfortable in meeting the 43%, because here's what happens on the back end. If I qualify somebody at 43 and I go to sell it off in the secondary market, and the secondary market person who's sitting there says, I don't like the way you calculated income. I think their income's $1,000 less per month. I don't have a qualified mortgage at that time. So then I have to eat a loan in which I have no more safe harbor provisions on.
Now you have to eat it even if it's not in default?
That is correct. That is correct. If it doesn't qualify, that would be something that we'd have to
use
service
a
ourselves.
lot of ketchup to eat a loan.
That is correct.
Well, but I recall
dry.
back in the 80s that,
Very
the FHA loan was 28 and 36, 28% of your front ratio and 36% of the back ratio, and rates were 14%, and we were still selling houses.
That is correct. And, the one thing that I've always said, right? So if you look at what's happened, we go back in history for the past 5 years. I'm going back history prior to that. We used to have down payment assistance programs. They're gone. We used to have 0% financing for FHA. It's gone. So what we've been doing, and you've seen this over the past couple of years, is we've been going back to the old style of lending, which is truly get an individual who is not taking 50% of their gross income, okay, and making sure that an individual who's getting into home are stronger, more qualified buyers in today's market. That's what we want. I mean, Lauren, this is just like I do. We want to have buyers that are very, very well qualified because it makes a better neighbor. It makes a better home buyer. It makes a better community. Last thing you want to have is a foreclosure out there.
Exactly. Yes.
So those are some of the things you're going to continue to see. Rates are going to rise more, not necessarily because of QM, but rates are rising because of what's going on in the market. Right. It's mortgage-backed security are no longer to be bought by the government or subsidized by the government. It's the traders who want to continue to trade up. It's our market, our natural market, that is going to cause rates to move up. Supply and demand.
That, we mentioned earlier, and I wanted to, since we're kind of on that subject, that the properties weren't moving as much on the lower end.
Right.
And is that strongly driven by, because a lot of the properties on the lower end are the government purchased loans, and they're getting out of that. We see less of that, and the qualifications are getting tougher. Perhaps is that what are we seeing on that? What do you think is a driver there? I've got some ideas.
One of the things that I tell everybody is, number one, discrimination in lending is illegal, right? So you can't discriminate against the buyer no matter what type or product they're buying, or more importantly, what type of loan they're obtaining, independent upon what the price of the property might be. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of communities we have here in Houston in which some of the sub $150,000 communities, sub $100,000 communities have a lot of challenged borrowers. These are borrowers that have a tendency to be first-time home buyers or have income levels that unfortunately are smaller than your $300,000 buyer. So what ends up happening on these areas is a lot of times, because I have a lot of these buyers. I mean, I have a lot of Hispanics, for example, who are buying their first home. Well, guess what? They have a lot of mattress money, right? You know, their banking system, I mean, let's think about it. They grew up in a lot of times in countries in which they didn't believe in the bank. And so the last thing they believe is putting their money back into the bank here, right? And so you have a lot of individuals that just don't understand how to go through the buying process because they haven't been educated in it. I mean, I had an individual that we just got through closing last month, but I've been working for him for 6 months and saying, you know what, every paycheck, every time you get it, don't get it and put it in cash and keep it in the mattress. Take it, start a bank account, put it in your bank. I need it to be seasoned. I need to show that you have a history of doing so. You know, so it's a lot of it's that education that you have to get around in order to get it.
Do you see on the lower end, I think this is the case from my background, what I see.
Right.
Do you see on the lower end people carrying more debt and having issues with the debt ratios that we're looking at?
You know, it's funny because the ones who have credit, yes, I would agree, absolutely. The problem that I have most of the time in that level is most of them don't have any credit. Yeah, and you know what I'm talking about,
yes.
right? Because what their philosophy has been is I paid everything in cash.
Yep.
You know, I did everything in cash. I didn't understand why I needed to establish credit. You know, and this is where we get back to you. You know, this is why you have to learn how our system works.
Yes.
And how to establish credit in this system.
And before Joe starts talking, because I want to segue to Joe, I'm segueing for you here.
Segue.
I'm segueing is that you talked about people who, you had to go out and buy a new set of tires, and
yes,
you bought a nice Christmas gift to buy yourself. Safety is always important. But,
Yay, new
but
tire.
we get a lot of people at this time of year have charged up their cards.
Yep.
Yes.
And so they're going to try to come to you, Chris, and get a loan, and you're going to say, can't help you. You know, you missed a payment on that one credit card. Or
Actually,
something
I don't
like
say I can't help you. I say there's a guy I know very well.
Yes.
He has a company called Improve My Credit USA.
Yay,
He will
shameless
give you
plugs.
a free analysis, and then Joe
Right.
takes it from there.
Yeah, but the thing is, but we're talking about setting goals, and
Yes.
so we've got somebody who's probably gotten a little bit too much on their credit card, may have missed a payment here and there because of the holidays. What kind of lead time are we talking about when we're starting to have? Maybe they're not major issues, just issues like we're talking about.
Well, we have two things we're talking about here that are equally, problematic in obtaining a loan. We have some experts out there that, in essence, tell you to cut up credit cards, unplug from the credit system, and just get off the grid and use cash.
You can say his name, Dave Ransby.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, my God. He's going to sue us now, Rob. Anyway, and I disagree with him on that. And I disagree with him from the premise of a biblical standpoint of what it means to be a good steward of finances. I would love to have that conversation with him because I'm prepared for it. In America, in my opinion, it's not possible to be a good steward of finances and also not use credit properly. And we're touching on why. We're coming up on a break, and so we'll jump into it. I know I just said something like majorly controversial to the audience. So when we come back, we'll touch on how to use credit responsibly as a good steward of your finances.
And I would agree. I think it's about how to use it responsibly as a good steward of your finances, as you mentioned right there. We're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about, obviously, finishing up 2013, going into 2014, and some of the great things we have in store. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever